episode of Coordinated Chaos. This week we are going to be recapping Week 16 of the NFL season, as well as doing the gambling preview and prediction for Week 17. So let's jump right into this thing. We're going to start with the Thursday night football game, the Jaguars versus the Jets. Two teams looking to go into the AFC playoffs here. The Jets have been stumbling a little bit lately, and they did that on Thursday night. With Zach Wilson back in the lineup, unfortunately, because of the injury to Mike White. He has some rib stuff he has to deal with, but it looks like he will be back for next week, so that's going to be interesting to see, what happens in the coming weeks with the Jets trying to still make the playoffs. But the Jaguars get another huge win, which puts them in the lead for the AFC South, because of what happened with the Titans and the Texans on Sunday as well. So it was a huge game. Actually, I think that was Saturday. This weekend was wild with the holiday with Christmas and the fact that there was games on Thursday, Saturday, Sunday, and then as well as on Monday night, which we're going to get to all this stuff later on in the pod. But yeah, Jaguars get a huge win. They now sit atop the AFC South, so I'm really glad that they're going to potentially end up winning this division. The Titans have faltered a lot the last few weeks, so I really want to see Trevor Lawrence in a playoff atmosphere. I want to see Doug Peterson back in a playoff atmosphere. After he got let go by the Eagles a couple seasons ago. So this is going to be an interesting time for the AFC, and I think they could really make some noise. They have the wild card. I mean, they embody what the wild card is, so that would be really cool. But I mean, if they win the AFC South, they don't even have to worry about the wild card at all. They'll just be the division winner, and they'll get to play somebody in the first round, and it'll be awesome. Next game, Ravens versus Falcons. The Ravens keep winning. They stumbled a few weeks ago. Tyler Huntley, got hurt, and so that kind of, hurt their chances of winning some of those games. But he came back in this one and was great. Falcons just are not a good team right now. They are trying out the Desmond Ridder experiment right now. They drafted him in the third round this past season, and they're trying to get him some work while Marcus Mariota is on IR with a knee injury. He's probably not going to come back this year. So they're going to see what they have out of Desmond Ridder. They have the kid gloves on him right now. They're not letting him do too much. They're not letting him really destroy the game and not necessarily win the game either. They're trying to, operate that team with just running the ball and trying to play some good defense, which they can't really do because their, personnel is just not so great. So Ravens get another big win. They stay very competitive in that AFC North division. So we'll see what happens going down to the wire here with the Bengals, who ends up winning that division, but it'll be interesting. Let's go to the next game, Panthers versus Lions. Man, this is one of my best bets of the week. I said the Lions would end up covering this game at -2.5. Did not happen. Panthers came out and just steamrolled them. The Panthers are an interesting team, man. They play decent defense. They can really run the ball. Their run offense is incredible with Deontay Foreman and Chuba Hubbard. That's a nice little two-headed monster they got going on there. And Sam Darnold right now is playing pretty decent football. He's not making the mistakes he has in the past, and it's making that offense formidable right now. So they brought it to the Lions. Steve Wilks has that team playing well, and they definitely have a chance still at winning the NFC South. And I was completely wrong about the gambling prediction there. And I really thought the Panthers, after the loss last week, were going to kind of buckle under that pressure, and they didn't. So they still have a chance. And moving forward, that NFC South division right now is still up for grabs. I know the Bucs are still in it, and they won this past week, but it's really anybody's game right now. So let's go to the next game, Bills versus Bears. Bills end up getting it done. It was a close game for the first half, really. They were in Chicago again. That weather in Chicago is proving to be super tough to play in right now. The Eagles had trouble last week, and then the Bills had trouble this week with it, and then they ended up pulling away eventually because the Bears just aren't that great of a team, unfortunately. Justin Fields just continues to still make plays. Josh Allen and that offense got the job done. But yeah, it was a tough, hard-fought game by the Bills. They get it done, though, and they're looking towards the playoff once again, obviously. Next game, Saints versus Browns, man. This was a game that was super unfortunate. It's a funny storyline here because obviously, there was the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes in the offseason. The Saints were obviously rumored to be very interested in him. He ends up picking the Browns, and then the Saints end up beating the Browns with Deshaun Watson in this matchup. It's a wild storyline. Unfortunate for me as an Eagles fan, where obviously we're looking for the Saints to lose as many games as possible because of the fact that we own their first-round draft pick. So we do not like the fact that they're still kind of hanging around in this division and how bad this division is. We were kind of hoping somebody would take the reins on it, like the Bucs, but they just kept, hanging around, just being mediocre all season. So Saints win again. Saints have the Eagles coming up this next week, and it's got a lot of implications, obviously, and I'll get to that a little bit later in the gambling predictions. Next game, Chiefs, Seahawks. Chiefs end up winning this one. Chiefs are still rolling. Seahawks are floundering a bit here. They're just, I don't know what it is with them. I think their defense, like if you don't get a lead, if the Seahawks don't get a lead, and you allow the Seahawks to kind of pin their ears back and get after the quarterback, they have a tough time. Their run defense is not very good. So the Chiefs keep rolling, top the AFC. You know what it is. They're probably going to end up going deep in the playoffs. Vikings-Giants. This game was very competitive. I had this as one of my best bets. I said that the Giants would cover. They ended up doing it. It was a little bit... It got rough at the end there. I thought that, the Vikings were going to end up pulling away, but they did not. The Giants stayed competitive. I thought they would, and the Vikings just ended up going down the field, winning that one on a 61-yarder. So it was a wild game. The Vikings still continue to find ways to win these ball games at the very end, which is, like I've said all season, I don't think it's sustainable once you get into the playoff atmospheres, but you never know. I mean, the Vikings are a scary team because of that connection with Kirk Cousins and Justin Jefferson. He is now the season record holder for passing yards in the Vikings franchise, and he still has a chance. I think he only needs 224 more yards to be the first ever 2,000-yard receiver in NFL history, which is very doable. I mean, there's 2 games left. He's almost been averaging over 100 yards a game. So, man, it's very close, and I kind of hope he does it. I mean, just watching and witnessing history in the NFL while we're alive is impressive, and it's really cool to see. So, kind of hope it happens, honestly. He's a stud, and he deserves it. Next game, Bengals versus Patriots. This game got a little bit hairy at the end there. This was another one of my best bets. I said the Bengals would cover. They ended up doing it. They squeaked it out there. But the Bengals still rolling. Patriots are a tough team, man. They're feisty. They scrap. Their defense is good. It's just a matter of what you get with Mac Jones in that offense. Every week you just never know. So the Bengals get the win. Like I said, they're in competition right now with the Ravens for that AFC North division, and they're looking towards the playoffs, and they're hot going into it. So they have a huge game this upcoming week. We'll get to that in the gambling predictions. Next game, Titans versus Texans. Man, the Texans ended up winning this game. Titans are floundering, as I said before, with the fact that the Jaguars took the AFC South from them this past week. The Titans, unfortunately, had to put Ryan Tannehill, I think, on IR. He had an ankle surgery. I don't know if I'm actually not 100% sure now if they actually put him on IR, but he's going to be out for a while. He had an ankle surgery. They said he's going to try to get back for the season, but if they end up not winning the division, then I don't think there's a chance that they get into the wild card. I could be wrong there, though. But either way, Titans have not looked good the last few weeks. They keep losing. Texans beat them. I don't know why the Texans are even trying to win. They really need to just go ahead and get that number 1 draft pick in this offseason and stop winning. But they keep being competitive because Lovie Smith just wants to keep that job as head coach, which I don't blame him. But yeah. Next game, 49ers versus Commanders. 49ers go out and pretty much roll the Commanders, end up getting Taylor Heineke benched in this one. Carson Wentz comes in relief. This is going to be an interesting dynamic going forward because if the Commanders end up still making the playoffs somehow, I don't know exactly what they have to do at this point, but if they do and Carson Wentz ends up being the QB going forward, there's a chance where they play the Vikings week 1 or game 1 in the playoffs, and the Commanders and Vikings had a knockdown, drag-out kind of game earlier in this season, and the Vikings almost lost that one to the Commanders. So it's possible that they can lose that game, and then you have, if this is barring some crazy stuff where the Eagles, don't make the 1 seed, but the Eagles are the 1 seed. Then at some point, if the Commanders end up beating the Vikings in the first round of the playoffs off some crazy stuff, then you got the Carson Wentz-led Commanders coming into Philadelphia for the divisional matchup. That would be super wild to watch. But yeah, a lot of crazy storylines that can still happen in this season. But we'll see if Carson Wentz can, basically hold on to that starting job for the Commanders after the benching of Taylor Heineke. You never know. Carson Wentz can have another one of those just Carson Wentz type games where he gets sacked 18 times in a game because he just holds onto the ball too long. And the Commanders say, we just can't do this. Taylor Heineke gives us a better chance, and that could very easily happen going forward. Next game, we have the Cowboys versus Eagles. Man, this was a heartbreaker for us Eagles fans, man. We had so many opportunities to shut the door on the Cowboys season and this whole rivalry for this year and just sweep them this season. Did not happen. The Eagles had 4 turnovers in the game, which proved to be just a bit too much. Went down to the last possession still. Gardner Minshew, played pretty well, threw 2 picks. And then was kind of responsible for one of the fumbles on a bad handoff. But, the Eagles defense gave up way too many points in this one. There was a back-breaking 3rd and 30 that ended up getting converted by Dak and T.Y. Hilton late in the game. This was after the Eagles sacked Dak Prescott twice in the same possession. And then it was 3rd and 30. He threw a bomb to T.Y. Hilton, and the coverage just did not make it there in time. We had a backup starting slot / safety in there in Josiah Scott, and he just hasn't played a whole lot this season because of the injury to Avonte Maddox in this game early on. And so there was a miscommunication between Darius Slay and him, and Josiah Scott never made it over to, for that help defense. And Dak was just cooking up the Eagles' zone defense. That injury to Avonte Maddox may prove to be, detrimental to our zone defense and the communication on the back end. Hopefully we will get C.J. Gardner-Johnson back soon, but if we don't, that secondary can be susceptible to some big plays if they're targeting the middle of the field, which is what the Cowboys did with CeeDee Lamb. They really took advantage of Josiah Scott in there because they just did not want to throw outside the numbers to James Bradbury and Darius Slay, which I don't blame the Cowboys for doing. If you got a player that you can target and cook up in the middle of the field against the Eagles, you should do it, and that's exactly what the Cowboys did. Scored 40 points on it. But yeah, Eagles lose. Should have really won the game. As one that got away, obviously, and now Cowboys fans are on their high horse, which is hilarious, but that's neither here nor there. Let me go on to the next game. We got the Packers versus Dolphins. This one was on Christmas. This was probably the best Christmas Day game we had. Packers get a huge win. The Packers are still on the outside looking in for the playoffs. There's a chance, and with Aaron Rodgers, man, you never know. He's just so good. He finally had all of his weapons at his disposal, and then all of a sudden, Christian Watson in the middle of the game gets knocked out because of a hip injury, which is super unfortunate. But he's still got most of his weapons together, so that's really nice. But yeah, Dolphins falter. So I'm going to take this one on the chin. I'm still not a huge Tua believer. He had, a decent first half, and then he got sacked from behind and hit his head on the turf and ended up in the second half probably being concussed from what we're seeing and what's coming out today. And he ended up throwing 3 interceptions in that second half and blowing the game away. And obviously at that point in time, none of us really noticed that he was concussed. And so I was just thinking, man, this is just one of those bad Tua games that he's having, and I'm just still not a fan of Tua. But man, the fact that it was coming off of probably a concussion, I'm going to have to apologize for that one, because if he's concussed in that second half, he should have never been out there. The Dolphins staff are doing a terrible job keeping him healthy right now. If there's any inkling that he could have had a concussion too, they got to get him out of there. This is the 3rd one this season, and so he's probably got to be put on the shelf for the rest of the season. You got to put the player above, the game, and this is just unfortunate by the Dolphins staff. And honestly, the Dolphins, I don't know about the Dolphins coaching staff necessarily, but I know that the owner, Stephen Ross, is kind of a slimy dude, and so I just all of this feels off, and I don't like it. So even though I'm not a huge Tua guy, you got to protect the guy before the team. I don't know. It's very unfortunate, but Packers end up getting the win. Dolphins lose this one, and they're probably going to lose out if Tua can't go, which they probably should sit him for the rest of the season, but we'll see what happens there. It's a very unfortunate situation. Next game, we have the Buccaneers versus the Cardinals. This game was ugly. The fact that this game was close is ridiculous. Trace McSorley, 3rd-string quarterback for the Cardinals, in competition, in a competitive game with Tom Brady and the Buccaneers. It doesn't even sound right coming out of my mouth, but Tom Brady and them finally, I mean, they got it done. So it is what it is. They're going to stay atop the NFC South for the time being. The Saints, like I said, and the Panthers are on their heels right now, and just hoping that the Bucs end up flailing, but we'll see. Next game, we have the Chargers and Colts. This one was interesting because obviously Nick Foles is now the quarterback of the Colts moving forward. I don't know if he'll continue to be that because he didn't have a great game. Dude, the dynamic of Nick Foles in the NFL has been incredible. I mean, he's had a 7-touchdown game when he was with the Eagles, went 27 and I think 2 touchdown to interception ratio one year. It obviously ends up winning the Super Bowl for the Eagles in 2017. An incredible career in that respect, but then otherwise, if he's not in an Eagles uniform, he's just not good, which is super wild. But they end up losing this one. Chargers win this one. Still not. I mean, you watch that game and you just think to yourself, man, get Joe Lombardi out of here, dude. This guy is holding Justin Herbert and that whole offense back right now, and it's just unfortunate to watch. It's bad. But yeah, so Chargers get a big win. Obviously, they're still in the AFC playoff picture, so we'll see what happens with that. That's pretty much it for the Week 16 recap. Let's get on to the Week 17 gambling previews and predictions. We're going to start with the Cowboys -10 versus the Titans. I'm going to go Cowboys here, especially with Malik Willis starting. That offense just cannot really get anything going because he can't really throw the ball very well. He's just not there yet. Let's go next game, Eagles -6.5 versus the Saints. This is an interesting one because there's reports coming out that Jalen Hurts is going to press to play in this game, so they go ahead and lock up the 1 seed. Don't even mess with that Week 17 matchup against the Giants. So if Jalen Hurts plays this game, I think they obviously cover very clearly. Even if Gardner Minshew ends up playing in this game, I still think they cover. So I'm going to go Eagles -6.5 against the Saints, and we will lock up that 1 seed. Help our draft positioning for next season by knocking the Saints out of the playoffs, essentially. That would be huge. So, because we're obviously going to want that, top 10-ish type pick. We'll see where they end up, going, after Week 17. We'll see if the Saints still win that game somehow and basically destroy your draft stock. But moving forward, Chiefs -13.5 versus the Broncos. I got to go Chiefs here. Broncos looked terrible. Russell Wilson got commentated by Patrick Starr on Nickelodeon while he's getting picked off. And so that pretty much just destroyed, all of the confidence in the Broncos. But they obviously didn't see that on the field, but everybody watching the game saw it. So that's pretty funny. But yeah, the Broncos are just terrible, especially with Russell Wilson in there. So I got to go Chiefs. I know the last game was competitive and close, and Russell had probably his best game of the season. I just don't see it being replicated considering what he put on the field this past week. Next game, Jaguars -4 versus the Texans. I think the Jaguars probably win this game, but I want to pick the Texans to cover. The Texans have been playing very competitively the last few games, and they're brilliant. I mean, they're scrappy, dude. So I'll go Jaguars. I think they win. They continue to win. They stay atop the AFC South. But I think the Texans probably cover the 4. Buccaneers -3 versus Panthers. I think this is a spot where people are going to have too much confidence in the Buccaneers. And I think the Panthers end up winning this one outright, honestly. I don't know. I'll take the Panthers and the points, obviously, because I think it's going to be very close. But I think the Panthers really have a good chance of winning this game and just making that NFC South division title win. Or division title that much crazier coming down to the last week. Next game, Lions -6 versus the Bears. The Lions got smoked by the Panthers. Didn't see that coming. The Bears are competitive, and they stay competitive as long as Justin Fields is on that field. And I think the Bears cover this one. I think the Lions probably end up winning the game just like they did last time, but the Bears, I think, can keep up a little bit. And, just Justin Fields makes too many plays. Next game, Patriots -2.5 versus the Dolphins. I got to go Patriots here, especially with the fact that, Tua's probably not going to play for the Dolphins for the rest of the season. A lot of those players are going to be down on their luck. They're going to be kind of head droop because of the fact that they think their season could potentially be over. I don't know. I think the Patriots are just scrappy enough to get this one done. Commanders -2.5 versus the Browns. I'm going to go with the Commanders here. The Browns have just been not very good, even with Deshaun Watson back in the lineup. So I'll go Commanders. They're still fighting to be in the playoff picture, and I think they're going to do it. I don't have the fact that Carson Wentz is in there doesn't give me a whole lot of confidence because, the Browns can still get after the quarterback, especially with Myles Garrett. So it could be one of those really bad high sack kind of games for the Commanders, and Carson Wentz gets benched again. I don't know. You never know. Commanders are super wild. Next game, Falcons -3.5 versus the Cardinals. I think I got to go Cardinals here. It's a really weird one because I just think the Falcons, Desmond Ridder is just not going to give me much confidence to cover that spread. So I'll take the Cardinals and the points there, even though Trace McSorley has not been playing super well either. Giants -5.5 versus the Colts. I'm going to go Giants here. Giants looking forward towards the playoffs. Colts are just not a good team right now. Giants can be competitive in any game and win any game, really. It's just a matter of how the game script goes. If they get up and they get a lead, Kayvon Thibodeau and that defense can play well. They can blitz with Wink Martindale as their defensive coordinator. So I like them moving forward with that. 49ers -6 versus the Raiders. I'm going to go 49ers. The Raiders are a very wild team. I don't know how they lost to the Steelers. It's just been a crazy year for them. 49ers are just such a better team. 6 points is kind of low, so I got to go with the 49ers there, even with Brock Purdy, because he's been putting up good numbers. He's just been doing what Kyle Shanahan tells him to do, and he's executing at a high level right now. Jets -2.5 versus the Seahawks. Man, this one's tough because Mike White's going to be back in this game. The Jets still have a chance at the playoffs. They definitely got to win this game. But I think I'm going to go Seahawks with the points at the very least. I think the Jets can probably end up winning this game, but if you're going to give me that cushion with the Seahawks, the Seahawks are still looking to try to get in the playoffs as well, so they're very motivated just as much as the Jets are to make the playoffs here. So I'm going to go with the Seahawks and the points at 2.5. Packers -3 versus the Vikings. I know Aaron Rodgers he's sniffing the playoffs right now. He's trying to get back into that picture. But I think the Vikings have just had the Packers number the last few years. And Justin Jefferson's on such a tear right now. I kind of hope the Packers win this one, and I hope that Aaron Rodgers can find a way into the playoffs. But the Vikings just are a tough offensive team to stop, and they've had, like I said, the Packers number the last few seasons. So I'll go Vikings there. Chargers -6.5 versus the Rams. Got to go Rams. Rams smoked the Broncos, scored a ton of points here. And the Chargers never let a team out of a game. The Chargers never blow out a team. 6.5 is a ton of points. Rams have been kind of feisty with Baker Mayfield in there, so I'll go with the Chargers there. I'll go with the Rams. I'm sorry. At 6.5 points. That's just too much of a spread for me. Ravens -3 versus the Steelers. I'm going to go with the Steelers in this one. The Steelers always play the Ravens super, super tough. I know Tyler Huntley has played well the last week. But I feel like this is just a weird thing where the Steelers are going to win this one, and it's going to make the Bengals essentially win the AFC North. That's a crazy division going down to the very end here. But now this could change my mind if Lamar ends up playing in this game, but I don't think he will. So let's go Steelers and the points. Last game, and probably the best game of the week, Bills -1.5 versus the Bengals. I got to go Bengals here. Bengals are hot. I think they're one of the more complete teams in all of football. The Bills have showed some faults as of late, so I'm going to go Bills and the points. This is going to be a very close game. It's going to be a great ball game to watch, so looking forward to this one. But that pretty much wraps it up for the podcast today. I appreciate everybody listening. If you tuned in, please subscribe to our YouTube, our Instagram, our TikTok, all the good stuff like that. And look out for the gambling predictions coming later in the week. Once again, I appreciate Weston for editing this podcast, and we will catch you guys next week. See you.